I was hoping to sit so you could see all my Joan Didion books behind me, but it appears it's too dark. So I'm going to slowly zoom real quick up and over behind lifting my computer. Oh God, this is much harder than I thought. I hope you can still hear me. Can you see all those? There's also James Baldwin. That's my shelf of Joan Didion and James Baldwin. It's two of the best American writers of the latter half of the 20th century, and so they get a shelf together. Also, I own all their books, or almost all of James Baldwin, but I know I own all of Joan Didion. If you will remember, and I don't know if I really talked about this in my videos, but in 2015, when I was doing a year with women, I also started reading Joan Didion for the first time. I had owned Play It As It Lays and Year of Magical Thinking since Year of Magical Thinking came out on paperback. I bought them when I was at Berkeley. You can't go to Berkeley and not love Joan Didion. That's just how it is. But I didn't read her books for another 10 years. And I picked up Play It As It Lays, and I literally read it in one sitting and then was like, oh my God, I need more. And so I bought all of her books, slowly but surely, from, oh my God, what was that bookstore? This bookstore in North Hollywood that I'm spacing the name of, Odyssey, Iliad, Odyssey is the video store, Iliad Bookshop. Going there every weekend until I got all of her books, slowly but surely, and bought a few from this great bookstore in Pasadena as well. And I just love her so much, and I read all of her books in that year. Every single one. I could not stop reading them. I felt like I'd never found a writer who wrote the way I thought before, and just the way that she constructs sentences is, I think, how I think. And so I was like, whoa, we're on the same vibe here. I also read Year of Magical Thinking and Blue Nights right after Mr. Rochester died. My cat, I'm sure many of you remember Mr. Rochester. He was the best thing of all of my videos. And if you're still watching despite no Rochester, I thank you. But I understand if you stopped watching when my cat was no longer in them, because he was the best thing about my videos, and I loved him so much. And it's a little strange to compare the death of that she went through with the death of a cat, except that he was literally my best friend, my companion, and probably my soulmate. And I still haven't gotten over it, and I still haven't figured out what normal is post Rochester. I loved him so much, and her books really helped me try. And I think she's just meant so much to me as a writer. And I haven't even talked about the documentary yet, because I just have a lot of feelings about Joan as a writer and as a person. So I'm so grateful for this documentary. It's by her nephew, Griffin Dunne, whose father was the brother of Joan's husband, John Gregory Dunne. And this documentary started out as a Kickstarter. I can't remember now if I've said this or not. It started out as a Kickstarter, and I wasn't able to contribute because I didn't find out about it until after it was over. The final product is called Joan Didion, The Center Will Not Hold. That is from one of her many essays, and it is now on Netflix. It was premiered, I think, at New York Film Festival, and then was on Netflix yesterday, and you should watch it. It is so great. It is a beautiful, moving portrait of her as a person, her as a writer, her as a relative. It's probably going to be some of the last interviews you're going to see with her, and I think it's lovely to see someone like Didion puts a lot of herself in her work, or at least a version of herself, and it's nice to see her discuss those versions of herself and why she wrote, and how she became who she became, and why the subjects she wrote about were so interesting to her. It doesn't go in depth into every single one of her books and why she wrote every single one of her books, and as you see back there, there's quite a bit of them, but it does go into some of the big milestones of her career, and I think peer a little deeper into her as a person, past the myth and the sunglasses. I don't know. There's a lot to say about her as a person, her as a writer. I feel like she has such a unique voice, and I love her voice, and I love the characters she's created in the novels, but I also love her observational nature in her essays and the way that she shapes narratives out of real stories. What else was I going to say? There's some really touching moments between Didion and her nephew, and you can tell he admires her greatly and feels great love for her, and she feels great love for him, and it was lovely to see a family reflect that. What else was I going to say? There's just there's so much to say. Watch this film, read her books. She is so great, and I guess if you're a writer, write. I feel like I haven't written enough in the last few years, and I've gotten lazy about expressing myself, and maybe that's why I'm so unhappy all the time, and I need to like express myself. There's this great moment where she talks about how she writes to know how she feels, and I think a lot of us need outlets to express our feelings because otherwise we won't feel them, and Didion does a great job of taking that and putting it to paper and putting it into action, and we could learn a lot from that. Last thing I wanted to say, I loved the way they talked about how she put what grief is like for someone who's not a believer, and I think that's why the Year of Magical Thinking and Blue Nights helped me so much, because she doesn't rely on faith to get through it. She just relies on the process of thinking about it and reflecting and pushing forward, and that's great. I think there's not a lot of help out there for people who don't have faith to keep going, and that's how a lot of us end up being just bitter assholes, I think, because there's not a lot of philosophy out there for people who don't have a faith in something. But I'd rather not be a nihilist, so it's like, how do I do that? I had faith in my cat. Anyways, everything comes back to my cat. I loved him a lot. So this was a great documentary, and you should watch it. It's on Netflix. It's called Joan Didion, The Center Will Not Hold. It's from 2017.